Hello and welcome to this presentation of Eagle's Accounts Payable and General Ledger. I'm Mark Walter, Solutions Engineer at Epicor Software, and we're going to spend the next few minutes looking at how payables can help streamline what you purchase in your store in the day-to-day purchase of product, and also how that can flow to a general ledger for financial statement and reporting as well. So we're going to first talk about Eagle Accounts Payable, and that application is basically integrated with your purchasing to pay your bills as you receive merchandise. It also allows you to pay your overhead expenses as well. So the key is no need to put data into a third-party package. It's all passed off as you receive and update your inventory through purchase orders. That also creates payable records for paying of the invoice when that arrives later. And then that data passes to the general ledger for financial statements. Now the Eagle General Ledger. So it's really, this portion is our foundation of the financial reporting. So all debits, credits, standard double entry accounting is part of the package. We always want to know where the money's coming from, where is it going to. That way we can easily build either a simple balance sheet or a full financial, depending on how detailed and how many GL accounts need to be included. Not only does the GL, of course, pass off your purchases, but all your day-end numbers, your daily sales, your taxes, your tender types. So all of that can be grabbed into the general ledger for a full financial picture as well. So we'll talk a little bit about the background, the chart of accounts and the GL pass-off. So the chart of accounts, think of this as your GL bucket list. So this is where we will set up accounts for where are we pulling money from. For example, if I'm paying a vendor invoice, I would deduct the money from my inventory bucket and credit my payables bucket. So we want to always know where the money, again, is coming from and to. So we'll create those. That's something that's done during setup and training. It's not something that you typically do every day, but again, if you need to track a different category, this is where those are set up. And each vendor can also be set up with a default GL. When you go to pay that vendor, it makes it easy to, the system will automatically know what GL to pull from when you go to pay a vendor invoice. Now, during the setup and training, we also set up the pass-off. This is also what automates what happens in the system in terms of your purchases and paying your bills, but also all of your day-end numbers that come from Eagle. So again, your sales numbers, your taxes, tender types that I talked about earlier. So this is also, again, set up by store, and it also has the ability to be broken out by department. So if you wish to create a more detailed financial picture, you can break down the general ledger to individual departments. So how does payables flow when you start using an integrated solution versus manually receiving the purchase orders and then having to pay the bills off the POs and match things up when vendor invoices arrive? So each time you fully or partially receive a PO, we create a voucher. A voucher is simply a record that says, I need to pay this dollar amount of whatever came in that day, whether it was a full or a partial receipt. So in the case of a full receipt of a PO, there will always be, of course, one voucher for at least every PO. But if you do a partial receipt, then we'll create a voucher representing what came in the first round of receiving. And then when the remainder of the merchandise, perhaps that gets back ordered, arrives, then we'll create a second voucher, but still for that same PO. The goal is that typically the vendor is going to bill you for what you received on that given day. So automatically we're creating a record for what was the dollars of the received merchandise on a PO. So then inside of the accounts payable, this next screen is the voucher itself. we create what are called temporary vouchers, which are just simply in a holding state for you to confirm when the vendor invoice arrives. That could be via traditional mail or email. But now it's time to approve this invoice. So we're at the approval stage. Now, perhaps the check run is going to happen at a future time, or perhaps right on this same day, but this is where we're matching up, and we're also making sure that the numbers are coming from the correct GL accounts. So this is your confirmation that what you're being billed for matches up for what you received. Once then the voucher has been approved, it's turned into what we call a regular voucher and is ready for the selecting to a check run. So once we've completed our approvals, we will move it over as a what we call regular voucher. And then as we move over to the next screen, the top right is our selection screen where our regular vouchers will appear as ready to be included as part of a check run, whether you want to include all vendors or a specific vendor. And there's also the ability in Eagle now to do ACH payments with accounts payable and general ledger. So if you have vendors that can take electronic payments versus a printed check, that is another handy way to pay your bills. So you make your selections. We give you a cash requirement screen to let you know how much you will need on hand based upon the invoices you've selected to pay. And then we do a check run. At the end of the month, there is a check reconciliation viewer, so you can match those off with the bank statement. There's also a bank reconciliation viewer for all transactions that pass through against your bank account. So at the end of the day, this next slide is a picture showing your general ledger and what has, in terms of, in this case, my inventory, what I've paid for various vendors, and the accounts payable bucket that I pulled the money from or to cut the checks. So we debit the inventory bucket in this, all these lists. These are invoices that I selected to pay. And then you'll notice that there's a corresponding credit to accounts payable, which then, of course, we debit the money out of that. That's where we cut our checks from. So it's all standard double entry accounting for your financial statements. And as I mentioned, your end of day numbers also end up here as well. So at the time of the month, whether it's at a set time or on demand, it's easy to reconcile and bring up a pre-built financial statement with the appropriate GL accounts included. As I mentioned before, this could be as simple as a balance sheet, a simple P&L, or I can get right down and show all my individual general ledgers. We help you design these and set this up during the implementation and training. And then there are various other reports, such as a trial balance. So I can always break down my balances by GL bucket and what debits and credits have hit against those GL buckets over a date range. And then income sheet, basic simple income sheet. So lots of different basic reports. So in summary, the key pieces of accounts payable and general ledger are the integrated bill pay. Everything's passed off automatically to the general ledger, so there's no double entry. There's no worry about fat fingering numbers or taking the time to key that information into another payables package. And of course, everything you buy through your purchasing and receiving process will create payables records, so it automates the paying of your bills because you're already receiving merchandise through creating of purchase orders today. As I mentioned earlier, there's a bank and check reconciliation viewer for making sure you balance against your bank statement when it arrives. So those records will automatically pass over there to be verified with the ending statement balance, and you can check off what's cleared to make sure that you're in balance. And as we also talked about, the integrated financial reporting. Again, that's helped, or you're helped with that during setup and training, so it's not something that you have to do yourself. And we can make those reports, as we showed, to be as simple or more detailed depending on the need. So thank you for your time. If you have any questions, please contact your customer account manager, and we can provide you any information that you might need for accounts payable and general ledger.